Okay, hello, Jem. Tell me how it feels that your documentary, Love, Deutschmarks and Death, won the Panorama Audience Award at the Berlinale this year.
Yes. It feels great. It really feels great. And especially because it's a very German topic. And it was it was an international audience, sure, but also a lot of German people and also a lot of Germans with a Turkish or Kurdish background. So it really felt really good. And this film was also very needed for a festival in Germany, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of perfect. I remember when I was in Berlin in 2020, there was this documentary called the American Sector, and it's all about pieces of the Berlin Wall in America. And I mean, where are you gonna debut that? Come on, it's gonna be the Berlinale.
True. I mean, we grew up with Americans here. I used to live in Bavaria, and it was very much very close to the inner German border before the Germany's unified. And we had some 12,000 GIs stationed there. And so the city where I was born, Schweinfurt, was full with American soldiers, and we basically grew up amongst them. So I was in the PX, and I very much grew up with American culture.
What was that like?
That was amazing because it was normally they say, yeah, you're living in two cultures, like the German one and the Turkish one, but no, that's not true because we also had the American culture, and then also we became friends. Also, a lot. I have a lot of American friends from the army. Just the children of those people also they were living here. You know, they went here to high school, to their American high schools, and I was a bartender in a lot of American facilities and bars. And so, you know, you get to know each other. My English was developed there. So I had it in school, sure, but I developed it with the GIs. And it was amazing when Remake Remix Ripoff was in Austin at the Fantastic Fest. That was the US premiere, my other film in 2014 about the Turkish copies of Hollywood blockbusters. Friends, US friends, you know, that I knew from back then, you know, they came there, for instance.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay, so
was.
we were
And
talking.
also musically, you know, musically also
Yeah.
a lot of scenes were shaped here by the American soldiers.
Mm.
In Frankfurt and the area, there were also a lot of American soldiers, and there were also one or two activist soldiers who also shaped the hip hop and rap scene over there, you know, in that region of Germany. And in Schweinfurt and Würzburg, you know, the towns where I come from, the hardcore scene was very much influenced by Americans.
Do you remember some of the musicians they shared?
No, I'm not so too much in that scene.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, also the funny thing about the soldiers here in Germany was, and this is very similar to when I talk at the wedding halls, the Turkish wedding halls, when the Turkish musicians in my film say they had to know all different kinds of music from all the different regions from Turkey, because here in the diaspora, people from all over Turkey came together, so they needed to know all the tunes. With the Americans, it was when I was working in one of those American clubs, then Americans from all over the US would come together in one club. And this doesn't happen in the US itself. Maybe you're in Miami, let's say, then your cousin from, I don't know, from New York visits you, and then there's one or two people from different cities there, but there's a Miami crowd. But here in Germany, there was, you know, a lot of different people from all over the place, from all over the US in one club. And this was funny on the one side, but also there were tensions, like back then with the East Coast, West Coast thing happening, you know? So a lot of people from the East Coast and the West Coast would meet in one German club.
Oh no.
You know, and the rest you can imagine.
That's beautiful. So tell me about the Berlinale experience this year.
Berlinale was nice to see because it happened.
You're right. What a relief.
Yeah, and our premiere was amazing. It was full, if you can, you know, because
nice.
of COVID, it was half the capacity, but it was full anyhow. And I liked it a lot because I don't know. It was for us also after 2 years of, lockdown, it just felt
Hmm.
great, to get to share this experience in one room with a lot of different people. And that worked out for our film also. I watched it again after the premiere because premiere is different, because there are so many people who work at the film. So you can influence somehow also the atmosphere, the
Hmm.
applause, maybe applause from, people who worked in the film. So I went to other screenings too, and also the last screening after we had won the award to just see how the regular people are reacting to the movie. And it was amazing. It was really amazing because it just worked out for us.
That's fantastic. Good to
Yeah.
know.
And also watching other movies was also great, by the way, not just our movie,
Hmm.
So,
What were some ones you
and
enjoyed?
oh yes, there was the French one called Nobody's Hero. I liked very much. Viens, je t'amène. That's the French title. It was the
That's
opening of the Panorama. And then there was the other movie. I just don't know I forgot the name of it, but it was a correspondence between Godard and the Iranian author filmmaker,
oh my
and they
God.
were they were sending each other mails, and the Iranian filmmaker who's very famous, Ibrahim. I just forgot his surname. He just didn't get what Godard was telling him or wanted. Godard was like, sending him stuff and
Yeah.
pictures and letters, and he was like, what am I supposed to do with this? It was so funny, that he just didn't, solve the Godard thing. It was really good.
That is that would have been something to see for sure. Okay, so tell people what the documentary is about specifically.
Our documentary is about the musical culture of the migrant people who came here to work since the 1960s, and the migrant people from Turkey who came here. And they came here to work, and mostly the thought was that to come here to help build Germany up. Germany had this economic wonder after Second World War,
Mm.
and they needed urgently workers, and they came here. And they wanted to work us a couple of years, earn some money and get back to Turkey. But this didn't work out. So a lot of people stayed here. In Germany, there are 3 million people with Turkish or Kurdish background living nowadays, with the third, fourth generation of migrant people here. And after the 70s, Germany turned into a country that had this type of migration
Mm.
and the culture. But these people came with their culture and with their music, and their culture was always hidden, or our
Mm.
culture was very hidden in this German mainstream. There were no TV shows, there were no radio shows. It was like always for the last 60 years. It just happened within the community. And I did a documentary film that shows this culture over the decades also, and with its development, and also with the, showing some artists, very important artists for the community, let's say. And I'm putting the music, the artists, and the socio-political background together into one alternative history of Germany after World War II.
It's very helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because what I enjoyed about it is how specific it is, but I feel
Mhm.
like there's applicable lessons as well, especially when we look at new immigrants to Germany, notably from Syria. And I when I was in Berlin, I did hear some unfortunate descriptions of like of those people. So I was just wondering, what do you think is the takeaway here? What is something either maybe the German government could do, or maybe European culture can just do to improve the situation?
I don't know. I mean, how can you deal with racism in general? That's
Right.
the same question in the States, in Canada, in India,
Hmm.
everywhere in the world. How do you deal with racism? I don't know. I can't tell you. Um, what you can do, or what our film is saying, maybe is just to improve the representation of those people, maybe the cultural representation, to invite them into the TV shows, into German TV shows, maybe, that kind of music, and just, to show through culture, to bring people together. And I mean, in the last 60 years, you can really, like, just a bunch of Turkish or Kurdish musicians were invited to German TV shows, back then when television was the um, was the most important medium, because with the internet that changed, everything changed,
Yeah.
or even the satellite television, when we all of a sudden could receive the Turkish television channels here in Germany, that changed too a little bit. But German TV or German media, German newspapers also, all that, was only for Germans. And this kind of culture, or those artists who, by the way, sold millions, were just ignored. I mean, they didn't. When you sell millions in Germany, you should be somehow pictured also in the billboards.
Absolutely.
Right? You should be somehow charted, like whatever. This didn't happen because the Turkish music or the Kurdish music, they wasn't sold in the record stores. So it was not in the German distribution network. They had their own distribution network, which was the Turkish grocery shops. So the music, and also the tapes behind me, all these VHS tapes and stuff, that was sold or rented in regular food stores.
Yeah. And we see that in the documentary too. It's cool.
Exactly. But some people also say that the Turkish labels, because the first Turkish labels that were found in Germany, or found, I don't know, that started in Germany.
Yeah.
The first one, Türkiola in Cologne, started in 1965, and then Uzelli in Frankfurt came in 1972, and then Minareci, these are the three big players, came in the mid-70s in Munich, So they entirely produced, so the artists were, most of the artists, they recorded in Germany, they produced in Germany, and they distributed in Germany. So basically they are the first independent labels in Germany. Way before, punk labels or, hip hop labels became independent, these Turkish labels had independent structures.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you need to rewrite the history of independent labels in Germany again.
Yeesh. God, there's a lot to chew on. So who are the standout artists?
Oh, the standard Turkish artists, there are so many of them.
In your opinion, who are the best?
Best.
The best of the best.
There's one Turkish artist who is in our movie, but you don't identify him as one of the big artists. And this is the funny thing, because just people from Turkey can. And this guy's name is Neşet Ertaş. And Neşet Ertaş is the son of Muammer Ertaş, who is one of the big ashiks, Anatolian singers, songwriters who, go from town or village to village, and do improvised songs and tell tales. And it's oral culture, also oral culture that is somehow also the memory of Anatolia. This is what the ashik does, And Neşet Ertaş is the one person who, when you remember at the Turkish Bazaar, this one metro station, it was closed because of the Berlin Wall and turned into the Turkish Bazaar. There was this one, you go through the bazaar and then he enters a shop and there's a guy playing the Turkish lute, That's very guy was Neşet Ertaş.
Okay.
It was like, what the hell, Neşet Ertaş, it was like, it's like seeing Woody Guthrie,
Yeah, right.
I was like, what? And this was for us, it was like, no, the documentary filmmaker, the German documentary filmmaker back then who had filmed that, he didn't know that this guy was that guy, he didn't know that this was Neşet Ertaş.
That's funny.
The audience also, the German audience or the international audience, or people who are not into Turkish music, they don't know either, But the Turkish audiences, and this was the funny thing, when at the premiere, they were like, what? So apparently Neşet Ertaş was in Germany. He had a cassette shop, or an instrument shop at the Turkish Bazaar, and a lot of people knew that he was in Germany, but there was no visual evidence of that. There were maybe one or two photos because he used to be a wedding musician here. And he also, became more famous even after his death. But, the very fact that Neşet Ertaş, used to live in like 2 streets away from here, is something that gave me a lot of, I don't know, it's like, and 2 streets away lives David Bowie, or used to live.
Yeah.
You see, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And imagine David Bowie, he did a Turkish song also.
Oh really?
The song Yaşasın, or the Yasasin, Do you remember 1979, I
No,
suppose?
no, no, no.
Assassin. This is a song by David Bowie. That's a Turkish word. And
Okay.
in his time here in Berlin, it was a graffiti on the walls because Yasasin or Yaşasın in Turkish means you use it in words like how's that called? Long live the 1st of May.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like
sure,
graffiti
sure.
is for the Workers' Day. Okay, long
Okay.
live the Communist Party and stuff. So
Yeah,
these
yeah.
kind of graffitis were all over Berlin when he used to
Uh-huh.
live here. And he asked his friends what that means. And after he had, understood this, he made this song about the guest worker here in Germany. And he was
Wow.
living very close to the Turkish bazaar, the where he lived. So it can really be that he also, that their ways crossed, and I like to imagine that, David Bowie walking the Turkish bazaar, in the Turkish bazaar, and then meeting Neşet Ertaş, two important musicians who don't know each other, but their ways have crossed, maybe.
Tell me about the Turkish rappers.
The Turkish rappers. So Turkish rap developed here in Germany together with the German rap, I'd say, in the 80s. In 1982, we had the big breakdance. What's it called? The breakdance epidemic. I don't know what.
Okay, yeah.
So it was also in the mainstream media. There we had aerobic shows with breakdance in it. And so breakdance was a big thing in 1982. But around that time, hip hop had swept over, and also with the GIs. And the Turkish kids, they very much identified, or the migrant kids, and also German working class kids, they very much identified, with the youth culture that came from over there. Because, the Hispanics in America, they were somehow, had the same status also, the same kind of discrimination happened to them. And so, there was a very strong connection. And then imagine a song like The Message.
Yeah.
So I mean, this really, this
It
takes it because
resonates. Yeah.
because this is a song that it even though maybe they didn't understand everything,
Right.
but somehow it speaks out of the souls and out of the hearts of the youth here, because they got, all this discrimination, all this living in the ghettos, being poor, being the uh,
In Beitan.
the part of society that nobody wants.
Right.
So this was a big identification factor, let's say. And so that music was appreciated here in Germany for the first time. We felt understood somehow. So people started to, so hip hop started here in Germany, and in the beginning everything was in English. So German and also Turkish German rappers started to rap in English and try to do their best, with their school English. And then soon, they somehow, like in many other countries also, they just, saw, okay, let's try it maybe in German or even in Turkish. So this is, that's the development. And doing it in Turkish was even more revolutionary in Germany, because then the Germans didn't understand it. That was the other thing. Okay. And then there was also even a diss track by one of the important German rappers, Moses P, who was dissing the Turkish rappers because they were rapping in Turkish. He was saying in this song, learn to talk German first. That kind of
That's
discrimination
not very
within the
nice.
within the hip hop community happened too. So then somehow also in the 90s, with these attacks against the migrant population here in Germany, somehow this Turkish thing became very important to the community, because they, the kids, they were enraged, and they, put all their feelings into the music and started to rap in Turkish. And that became very famous. And all of a sudden, Turkish hip hop became famous in Turkey itself. So there was a re-import. So there was this big group called the Cartel. And Cartel, they were 3 or 4 rappers who united to form that group. And they made one album that was, amazing. It was that was totally speaking out of our hearts. And it was in Turkish. And then they went large in Turkey. They were like filling stadiums. And this went on for 2 or 3 years. And basically, it is sad. I'm not so sure about it, whether it's true or not, but in the history books, it's written like this, that Cartel invented Turkish hip hop in Germany and brought it to Turkey. And so Turkish hip hop in Turkey started with a group that came back from Germany.
Damn.
So,
What a cycle.
there was no genuine Turkish hip hop going on back then in Turkey. They're saying some people disagree, but
right.
Yeah. And then, and that just developed and up to today, nowadays, if you look into the hip hop and pop charts in Germany, most of the acts, most of the really famous hip hop acts for sure have migrant background. We have a lot of Ukrainian, a lot of Serbo-Croatian rappers. We have Turkish rappers, Kurdish rappers, very famous people like Haftbefehl, for instance. He is a Kurdish Turkish rapper. And then also rappers from Turkey are living in Germany now. Very famous rapper Ezel, for instance, who he came 5 years ago to Germany. So now Germany also becomes a place where new immigrants or new migrants come here. They're not coming here for, because to work, but they come just because, I don't know, they have jobs in the IT business or things like that, So that's happening now. And through the internet and through the fact that you could self-distribute yourself, that you're not dependent on big labels anymore, So for the kids, it's a much easier to develop their own styles and also to gather the success that they need. There is one amazing rapper who also lives very close here. It's called Pashanım, for instance. And that guy, he's a Turkish background, but he raps in German. And he has a very unique style, and he has, I think 120 million plays on Spotify.
Damn.
For one song that he has, and he's a kiddo from around the clock, from around the block, like 25 years old, maybe. Yeah.
It's crazy. All you need is like an Instagram page, and you can make it pop.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's what's happening. And basically, that's also interesting because when Turkish or migrant hip hop, let's say, when it became famous, it started, let's say, in 2002, 2003, around that thing. Because in the beginning, it was Turkish hip hop was very much conscious hip hop, very political hip hop, or hip hop made by Turkish groups, maybe. But then later, they never got the chance to get a record deal or a major deal, because in the 90s in Germany, everything had to be German because of the German unification. And also German rap had to be done by Germans, by middle-class Germans. So hip hop was very much middle-class music here, mainstream hip hop.
Interesting.
This changed in the 2000s, around the 2000s, when the first self-distribution started via the internet, and the first music videos by migrant kids also were really successful. Then the big majors, they woke up and said, oh, okay, there is another market, and we could also, like distribute or sign these acts. But what they then basically did, or the problem here was always that the migrant hip hoppers were just then interesting, in my opinion. That's interesting when they played the stereotype that was supposed to be their way, and it was the gangster. So in the very moment you played the gangster, the gangster rapper from the ghetto, the hardcore kid, with everything that belongs to it, the success came. So there was no room for conscious migrant hip hop or political migrant hip hop back then either. And today it's very much the same, So the gangster thing took over. But I think this is also kind of racism or discrimination, a structural problem that we have, that you listen to there's
a lot of white conscious rappers for sure.
What again?
Well, like generally speaking, there's a lot of like white conscious rappers out there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But if you're a migrant, you're not supposed to talk about politics. Maybe about discrimination, okay, but not nothing else, So you have there your own niche, maybe, and that's also something I don't know that I see, but maybe that's changing too. I don't know. Because also this thing with being a migrant or non-migrant, this is in the 4th, 5th, 6th generation. We don't talk about these things anymore, right? We're all German here, and and where our parents came from is secondary, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to leave it there. I really enjoyed the documentary and learned a lot from the interview too. Do you have any idea about North American distribution?
Not yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a week that
You're right.
released the film.
Exactly. But we'll stay tuned. Hopefully it comes to Canada soon.
Yes, thank you. I mean, we have now European distribution. I think we're focusing on this, and North America. We'll see. Maybe it depends on also the festivals we're starting in the States.
Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you very much.